Immortality. What do you hear when I say the word immortality? Well, let me rephrase. What do you feel when you hear the word immortality? During the past couple of decades, when I had the opportunity and privilege to work with global leaders, I frequently sit down and I ask them questions about their organizations, whether it's a business, whether it's an educational institute, a non-profit charity, a religious organization. And we start talking about the legacy, the immortality of the organization. I frequently get puzzled looks, yet people are greatly curious to find out more about how do we build an organization that is truly enduring. When I grew up in the 80s, I was completely fascinated by these typical 80s action hero movies. But there was a specific genre amongst those movies that always seems to really speak more to my heart than just looking at a nice film. These were the stories of the great master, the sensei, the samurai, the teacher, and the young student, the apprentice. And the storyline would usually unfold about the transfer of not only skill and knowledge, but something of life experience, something of a value system, a spirituality, a purpose. When I think about it today, one of the first movies that comes to mind is the Karate Kid series with Mr. Miyagi, the Japanese karate master, the sensei, and Daniel's son. And through the progression of the movies, how much life was imparted from the master to the student. When I think about most probably my most favorite one is the movie Bloodsport. Now, I'm not a big Jean-Claude Van Damme fan necessarily, but the story goes of a young chap, Frank Dux, and Senzo Tanaka, his master, that's busy training him and teaching him how to become a great warrior. There's a particular scene in this movie that for me almost captures the idea of this immortality, this legacy that's being transferred from one generation to the next. And as I read just this piece of the script, I want you to consider your own life story. Who are the men and the women that built into your life? Who are the people that breathed life and experience and skill and value into your own story? This particular scene comes from an area in the movie where the Senzo Tanaka's son died, and young Frank Dux is asking for the privilege of continuing this teaching. Frank Dux asks, "What happened now?" Tanaka responds, "No more training. I stop now." Dux, "But you have so much to teach." Tanaka, "You don't understand. In the war, I lost my first family, my son, my daughter, and wife. They lived in Hiroshima. I left Japan because of the war. War was wrong. I came here to start over, begin a new family, have a son, another chance to pass on the teachings. For 2,000 years, knowledge was passed from father to son, father to son. When Shingo died, it stopped. Dux, teach me. I can do it." Tanaka, "You are not Japanese. You are not a Tanaka." Dux, "You have taught me using any technique that works, never to limit myself to one style, but to keep an open mind." Tanaka, "Why?" And I believe this final part is really capturing it. When Dux responds, "To honor you, Shidoshi." When we are talking about immortality, we're not referring to perhaps the Highlander series and you have the clan MacLeod and how they live just on forever and ever. We are rather talking about a relationship between one generation to the next. And we see Hollywood even going one step further, currently capturing and just capitalizing on this concept when considering, for instance, Jurassic Park, now the famous series of Jurassic World, how my childhood heroes of the 90s was suddenly brought back into the latest movie, Dominion, and you have the original cast and this new young generation coming together to do grand exploits and how they help and assist each other. There's something of a beauty when the young and the old, the new and the original comes together. But as I'm sitting down with leaders across the world and we talk about these concepts, and people, whether it's a family business or whether it's a corporate environment, people always struggle with different aspects of how do we actually do this? How do we get the time? How do we find the right people to transfer this teaching, to hand over the succession? One of the quotes that I recently read by a gentleman of the name De Priest, I think summarized this so nicely when he said, "Every one of us longs to have someone who believes in us. We passionately long for someone willing to invest their own lives into ours. The problem is that we live in a culture that is so possessed and controlled by its own self-created schedules. Most of us are just trying to figure out how to live our own lives, much less having the chance and the opportunity to become an influence in someone else's life." Today, I want to invite you on this journey with me. A journey which I call the organizational dynasty. How do we create enduring organizations where we as the leaders have the opportunity to hand over, to train, to raise a next generation of leaders that will continue this enduring journey of ensuring one generation of legacy will be transferred to the next? I invite you to come alongside me on this journey today.